Hi there, welcome to One-on-One with TJK. TJK team and I welcome you. We thank you for subscribing. We thank you for sharing. We promised you that we'll bring you transformational people who have done transformational work around the world and are making this world a better place. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored and blessed to have Tory Dietel Hopps, who is a friend, a mentor, a person I've known for so many years and who have made my career to be what it is right now. Tory is a daughter, she's a mother of two, her children, her husband, her family, sisters and brother, and the father and the mom who passed away were all close to me, and I'm glad to have a family and have Tory as my sister and friend. Welcome, Tory, and please tell our listeners from all over the world, but especially young people in Uganda, a little bit about you. Then we'll go through a series of 3 key questions that we've been asking all our guests who have visited here. We are so honored. You were the first one I wanted to have this conversation with before we launched it, but our schedules and health and travels haven't been able to get together. Now that I'm at Harvard, and now that I'm recording this in your house, we are able to nail it down. Thank you for hosting me. Please greet our people and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Jackson. And hello, everyone tuning in, listening. I am so honored to be asked to be sitting with you and having a conversation, and your description of me is very humbling, because I feel moved and equally want to acknowledge how much our friendship has both meant to me personally, but also how much I've learned from you professionally, Jackson. So you may call me mentor only if I can call you mentor as well. So I'm speaking from Maine in the United States. We're the northeastmost state next to Canada on the coast, east coast of the United States. I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in a family with 3 older sisters and an older brother, and parents that were very much activists, social activists, people that cared about others and cared about issues and politics, and cared very much about education, and particularly women's education and women's leadership. So I grew up in that context, and professionally spent the first 25 years of my career as a fundraiser in the nonprofit world. And I worked for organizations that were providing social services, education, taking care of the environment, some international health organizations, and ran a couple organizations as well, and helped to work with a number of organizations to help make them stronger and better as a consultant. And my career took a turn about 15 years ago, and I since then have been working with a number of individuals and families who are wanting to put money to work in the nonprofit sector, both globally and in the United States. And that's how I met you, my friend.
Yes, that's how we met, Tory. And, you know, I love the fact that people connect others. And so many guests on this channel have said, your network is your net worth. I remember vividly when I was in Aspen, Colorado, hosted by Carol and Rob Ord at their home, when Elaine Grossman said to me, the work you are doing is amazing work for women and children in Uganda. I have a friend called Tory. You must meet. Thank you, Elaine. When you see this, please know that I really so much appreciate the fact that you connected us. and so many other people. I always describe it as a tree that starts with a seed, and all these branches go, and the seeds. The late Ann Hopkins out of New Hampshire, who, bless her heart, and may her soul rest in peace, who also became a board member and later advised until the day she died. She was a huge supporter of ours. What got you into fundraising and led into this passion of continuing to work with individuals who are doing work in this world? What was the spark? When did it start?
I think it started very early, in that my parents were often talking at the dinner table about fundraising because of the things they were involved in. So before I ever held a job, I knew about that. I heard stories about it. And I also remember distinctly watching the delight that my parents had when they were able to connect someone with an organization or a mission that they felt was important and could feel that same connection with someone who decided to support an entity that they were working with or working for. So I remember it as a very joyous thing. Not that there weren't some times where my parents, I'm sure, were trying to raise money and somebody said no to them, but the yeses were joyous. So when I was in college, I was very interested in communications, and I had wanted to be a communications major, and my university closed that department my freshman year. And so I had to pivot and make some changes with my plans. But my senior year, I decided to do an internship with public TV in the United States, which is a television station that's supported mostly through donations. It is not a commercial entity. And so I went and worked in their fundraising department and learned how to raise money from businesses, how to raise money from individuals who wanted to support predominantly children's programming that was happening on the television and through the station. And that's where I met my husband as well.
Mr. Hopps, I hope he's not listening to us. We are going to record this. That's where you met your husband, and you are a mother. Introduce you as a mother. 2 grown, wonderful children. Tell us about how you raised the children in the middle of 2 careers, both you and your husband. They have finished college. They are now on their own. Yeah, talk about the parents working and balancing the career of children, home and husband.
Well, when we had our kids, I was someone who kind of went through all different stages of being a stay-at-home mother, working part-time, working full-time. I never felt like I found the right mix, honestly, between wanting to be involved in the world and wanting to be involved with my kids. It was always, for me, I think, hard to try and find what that right mix was. But our son Sawyer and daughter Carly were born outside of Boston in a pretty urban area. And when they were little, I myself grew up on a farm as a child, and I really wanted them to have that experience. Felt like I learned a lot of lessons about life and the world by taking care of animals and being responsible for other lives. So we moved to Maine, bought a farm, and the kids grew up in a rural, more rural area. And at the end of their high school careers, they both decided to go to school in the big city of Chicago. So they've had an interesting, I think, life of experiencing very different kinds of environments. I'm happy about that.
Wonderful. Little farmers you raised. I am going to pivot a little bit and again say we bring this channel people to learn, unlearn, and relearn. now heard from you, from your mother point of view. We've heard a little bit about your fundraising, wife, daughter. Many of our listeners are young people. When they look at Tory Dietel Hopps and look at Wesley Jackson Kaguri and many other people I've talked to, they think God created us, or higher power, just to put us in the world, and bam, we were in the careers we are in. The process of getting where you are for somebody who's 18 or is 21, what advice would Tori give herself at that age, knowing what you know now?
That's such a powerful question, Jackson. And I think I have a lot of thoughts on that. I think number one, it was important for me, or I would say to myself, if I were 18, talking to me, that you stay flexible about what life has in store for you. I don't think any of us, I couldn't have imagined at 18 where my life took me. And for the most part, I didn't have a lot of obstacles in my life. I've had a few, but when things didn't go the way I thought they would, or plans changed, not something that I had control over, I think staying flexible in your mind is incredibly important. Life has all sorts of, it's like a road that keeps having parts that turn off. You have a choice to go left or to go right.
Yes, right road, left road.
Yeah. And so, and sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes you have to take the left.
Exactly.
So that's one thing I would say to my 18-year-old self. I think the other thing I would say to my 18-year-old self is don't take yourself too seriously. Remember to have humor and look for humor. Life has lots of ups and downs, and humor is both something that helps us get through the hard times, but it's also a way of connecting with people. And if you take yourself too seriously, you can miss out on all sorts of moments in life. So that's definitely one. I think the other thing I would say is similar to your comment earlier about your networks are your net worth.
Yes.
My family and my friends have always been incredibly important to me, and making time to stay connected to people and making time to be in relationship is so important, because over your lifetime of 40, 50, 60 years, though the people who have watched you and known you throughout parts of your life are the best people to get advice from and the best people to help you stay on the right path. And then I think the other thing I would say too is I had an aunt, my Aunt Carol, who had a profound impact on me. She was someone who struggled with a lot of physical issues and health issues. And she was always the most positive person. And she used to say, in life, we can control nothing but our attitude. Wow. And that has been a profound lesson for me. And I truly believe that's true.
That is the tweetable moment, like Oprah always says, attitude, powerful. Thank you for sharing that with our young people. But like we always say, there is something for everybody who is listening. You went ahead and gave advice even beyond the young people. The lessons we learn, for me as a man who grew up in the church, we all are children in our hearts, and that advice for 18-year-olds is applicable to all of us, regardless how old we are or how old we think we are. Since I met you and you did highlight the mentorship, you and I have agreed we call each other mentor for each other. You've mentored me in so many different ways. But for the first time ever on record, I'm also going to say that when I worked at Michigan State University, in fundraising office, I had a conversation with you in 2010, where I said, Jackson, Nyaka is growing. It is on a trajectory. It keeps going up and up. You have a choice to make whether to stay working with Michigan State University. I hope the Spartans will forgive you. Or you can work full-time for Nyaka, and I work with advisors of Dietel Partners to make sure we get you a salary for a few years, and then you can raise money. So ladies and gentlemen, the world over, now you know why I left Michigan State University. My mentor and friend here, co-mentor, mutual mentor, saw what I was not able to see at the time. I knew I wanted to work full-time for Nyaka, but I was afraid how I would make ends meet. I made it work for me. So children of Nyaka, staff of Nyaka, you meet Tory now, you know how that went. What did you see that I was not seeing in this young man from Uganda? You had traveled to Nyaka at that time. You've visited several times. You've taken your daughter to Nyaka. We appreciate you, and we are working on Jonathan, your husband, also to get to Nyaka. What did you see in the leadership gap at Nyaka that really got you to have that conversation with me and with the board about my jumping from corporate higher education fundraising to working full-time for Nyaka, which I'm still doing today?
So a couple of things, but let me just back up and say that I had the opportunity, Jackson, to both get to know you and see your talent, but I also had the opportunity to work with people of wealth who were extremely generous and who wanted to make a difference in the world and who were not risk avoidant. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but I want to say that. So I played a bit of a matchmaker between you and the resources that it took. But I just want to be clear that, you know, there was a third party here who the donors want to remain anonymous, but it was their generosity that was really forced behind that decision. So when I met you, I was struck by so many things, and they were complementary. They sort of built on each other. One was your own personal story and the fact that you had lived through losing siblings to HIV/AIDS, how much it had impacted your family and your community, and that you had a calling to do something about that. So the level of passion and the reality that you had walked in was something that was very moving to me. And it also made me realize, here's someone who is working full-time at a job, and when that job is over, they pick up a second job halfway across the world to try and help the people in their community. And I knew how hard you were working. And that was incredibly moving to me. And it also it demonstrated to me how committed you were. And leadership requires commitment. I also think that you had the extraordinary training that you did in the fundraising at Michigan State, that you were really trained about how to do this. You understood how things worked. You were effective for them, and I knew you could be that much more effective for Nyaka because it was that much closer to your heart. I think the other thing that was happening at the time is you had written your book, and there was a moment for you to tell your story. Yep, School for My Village. There was a moment in time for you to tell your story with the book tour that you did. And I knew from other people that had written books how exhausting those book tours can be, but also I knew it was an incredible opportunity, right? And then lastly, I think having been on the ground in Uganda and visited Nyaka, experienced the community, it was clear to me that you were just at the beginning of helping the broader community to do better things and to take care of the children and all members of the community. And that's something that is important to me personally, I think, is the idea of holistic work, right? That we sometimes have a solution, an item, a product, a service. But when we're talking about community health and community development, you need all of it. You need education and health and safety. And so the fact that you had a vision for how to meet multiple needs of the community, even though you were leading with the children and the children's needs, that was quite striking to me.
Thank you. Thank you. We could have these conversations for hours and hours. Thank you. And since we are also talking about your visit to Uganda, I would like our staff members will be watching this, the children in Nyaka will be watching this. When your anonymous partners, donors, made the donation, you were the first one to agree to our holistic approach of providing food. And the farm, Desire Farm, we have in Nyaka now, the library that sits on top of that farm, that land was given through your efforts and the anonymous clients, who we thank you for making that connection. We continued to work with you for many years to build systems. You continued and traveled with several women out of Aspen, Colorado and Joto Minoro. I'm happy to report that the child-headed family you visited on that trip, Abby became a teacher. She teaches at Kutamba. Shira, the sister, is working in the Middle East. She graduated with a degree and she's working in the Middle East. Isaac, their youngest brother, who was born and still lives with HIV/AIDS, got vocational training from Nyaka Vocational Secondary School. And so your mustard seeds have continued to grow into the seeds that continue to give more seeds. You've given gifts to our communities that continue to give. I don't want to end this conversation without talking about your experiences and humor in fundraising. You and I have had a lot of conversations, good, memorable experiences in fundraising. Our listeners, I know you've shifted. When you hear fundraising, please remember Tory Dietel told us that she has moved on from working directly with the clients to a different shift. So the experience is there, the stories are there. It's in a different rhyme right now. We will have her bio and information in our comment section. Do share one that you are able to share, an experience in fundraising that will make people chuckle, or we'll teach young fundraisers what to look out there as they hit the streets and work on the work they do to make a difference in the world.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a story you haven't heard yet. There was it's not my story, it's a colleagues of mine's stories, but she was doing fundraising and was in charge of visiting a number of elderly people. Mm-hmm. And so, as in many cultures around the world, when you come into someone's home, quite often, particularly older people, want to feed you. And they want to give you something to drink, and it is considered very polite and kind to accept someone's offering of food or drink. So she came into this elderly woman's apartment, and on her coffee table, she had a small container of peanuts. And so my friend said, well, I should eat some of these peanuts because she's put them out. The woman had put them out for her. So she had a sip of her tea and she ate a couple of the peanuts. And the older woman said, "Oh, I'm so glad you like those peanuts." And she said, "Oh, yes, these peanuts are lovely." And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad because I just like to suck the chocolate off of them."
Oh.
So she was eating a bowl of peanuts
Oh
that had
my
the
God.
chocolate sucked out of them.
Wow. She was eating sweets
Yes.
from the old woman. Oh my goodness. Things we have seen on these fundraising trips, on these fundraising stories. We'll have more conversation regarding that. I don't want to end this conversation without talking about your late mother, who wrote so many notes to me while she was living, who loved Nyaka Grandmother's program. On every Mother's Day, your mom would make a donation and she would write a note encouraging me to continue taking care of grandmothers. She was a grandmother, transformational woman, open-minded. I was honored to be at her funeral, though it was a family affair. I was honored to see your dad being so strong, able to hold on, and was so happy that I came and made it to the funeral. But during the speeches, the gentleman who spoke from New York and talked about how he was made to feel present because of your mom. Many, many years ago, when people didn't accept gay marriage or a couple that would get together, your mom said to his partner, "You are coming to the party and you are coming with your partner." That story still strikes me, knowing where we are as the world and the role your mom played in that couple's life, partners, and for him to say it at the funeral was huge. What kind of mom did you have, Tory? That was a glimpse for me. For you, you grew up with her, the youngest of 5.
Yeah, my mom, one of the things I think was so struck by Nyaka and the Grannies program and the Mukakas is that my mom was one of those mothers who was often taking in other children, right? We often had somebody staying at our house who couldn't live with their family, or something had happened and they were away from home and needed a place to stay. So we had lots of foreign students that came and lived with us when I was growing up. So I think the nature of the grannies in Uganda of being open-hearted and compassionate and welcoming of other children into their homes, no matter the condition of their homes, was something that really struck me because it was sort of a reflection of who I thought my mom was. And my mother was also very feisty. She was very outspoken. She was a leader in her own way. She did a lot of things in the community, and she bossed a lot of people around for a good reason. But I think, from her, I learned a couple things. One, I think, is that the purpose of life is to lead a life of purpose. Mm-hmm. And that we are made much happier in our life when we are in service to others than when we're in service to ourselves. Wow. And that was always a lesson that I was learning from her and my father as well, but my mom in particular, from a very personal way, and to speak the truth, and to have the strength of character. So the story you're referring to was a colleague of my dad's who was a gay man and was not feeling welcomed to bring his partner to events, and my mom knew that wasn't right. So she wanted to be strong and help, make that be a safe moment for that couple. And I think in our everyday lives, there are moments to make someone else feel safe, welcomed,
Exactly.
and to be on the lookout for that.
So I have asked you the questions we ask guests who come here. I know time is of essence. We still have many conversations to have separate from this interview. Is there something I didn't ask you about that you would like to tell our audience?
I would like to, since I believe most of the majority of your audience is younger, and this is oriented towards younger people, but it's true for people no matter your age. There are so many things that we can learn in life, and opportunities where we can be of service. And if we take an attitude to have a lifelong curiosity, and that curiosity may range widely during your life. You might be interested in something as a teenager that is completely different in your 20s or 30s or 40s. But to be constantly learning, whether it's reading or talking to other people or taking a class, keep your brain alive. It keeps your heart alive when you keep your brain alive. And in terms of being of service, I think there are many, many, many levels of being of service in our lives. And oftentimes we hear only about people that have done something remarkable and miraculous. And there are lots of everyday heroes who are making a difference in people's lives. They're never going to be on TV. They're not going to be in a book. But that does not make their service any less. And we all have the ability to do that. So I would just leave with, if you want to have an enriched life, enrich yourself by learning and by looking for moments to be of service.
Wonderful. She has said it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you go back a few episodes, you will see another guest we had, Dominic Misolo out of Kenya. And if you watch that interview, remember I told you he was connected to me through amazing Tory Dietel. Just like she told you, we have everyday heroes. That's you. You are an everyday hero. You, our listener, claim it, own it, learn every day how to make it better. And when we all take that responsibility of being an everyday hero, the world will become a better place. Thank you for listening. We all know the best is yet to come. Do remember to subscribe, share, and share as much as you can. Tory, what an honor. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. Thank you for hosting. Thank you to your husband and your children and your dad who's still living. And may our moms rest in peace and continue to look down and shake their heads. Thank you. Our children continue to do the work we taught you to do.
Thank you, Jackson. Thank you, everyone. May we meet.
Amen.